Because do you really have a UTI? A lot of women with perimenopause and menopause have vaginal pain or vaginal issues, but if you look at their urine, they might have trace leukocytes, but they don't have any signs of infection, and it's more of an estrogen deficiency, or it's an imbalance of the microbiome in their vagina, which can start with the microbiome in your mouth or your gut. And so there's a ton of research showing that there are certain strains of probiotics you can take that will actually help keep the pH of your vagina balanced. Also, when we go into perimenopause and menopause, again, the secretions in our vagina changes because of our estrogen balances, our progesterone, our testosterone, more estrogen and testosterone. But when those secretions change and the pH changes in our vagina, and then we're having sexual intercourse and our partner's secretions mix with ours, it can change the bacteria, the balance in our microbiome to something different that just wasn't there before, because before we had extra lubrication from estrogen. And so then bacteria will stick and it will sometimes feel differently. And so then women freak out and think that they have an infection when really it's an estrogen deficiency or it's a lubrication issue. And so just understanding these things are really important, because if you take an antibiotic for a UTI 3 times a year for 10 years, we're going to be in big trouble by the time we make it to menopause.
Hello, ladies. Welcome back to another episode of Menopause Reimagined. Today, we're going to be talking about gut health and hormonal health and how the two are interrelated. I have an incredible guest on. She's a medical doctor, and I love her approach to how we look at women's health in general. But before I bring her on, I'm going to do a quick intro to who I am. My name is Andrea. I'm a nutritionist for more than 20 years. I'm a 7-time published menopause researcher. I'm the best-selling author of Nourishing Menopause, Powerful Nutrition and Lifestyle Strategies to Feel Your Best. And I'm the co-founder of wearemorphus.com, a company that helps to empower you to take control of your health and symptoms now that you're in perimenopause and menopause. My book, Nourishing Menopause, is in stores now. It came out on May 5th. So if you don't have a copy yet, please grab a copy. And if you already have read the book, please take a moment to leave a review wherever you purchased it or on Amazon. I would be so grateful, as that will help other women find it as well. Today I'm speaking with Dr. Cassie Smith, MD and dual board certified endocrinologist. She's the founder of Modern Endocrine and chief medical officer of Thyroid. She also serves on the medical faculty of Avexius Medical, a bioidentical hormone company. Dr. Smith is known for helping patients uncover why they still feel unwell despite normal lab results by using a holistic root cause approach to gut, metabolic, thyroid, and hormonal health. She's the author of Fix Your Gut, Fix Your Hormones, the critical connection your doctor is missing, and why you still feel bad despite normal labs. And through her popular podcast, Hormones, Metabolism, and You, she translates complex endocrinology into practical, actionable guidance. Dr. Smith and her team help thousands of patients each year get to the root cause of gut health issues, hormone imbalances, thyroid disease, and weight resistance. She's licensed to provide telehealth and in-clinic care across 46 states, and she's based in Oklahoma. Now, here's Dr. Cassie. Welcome to Menopause Reimagined, Dr. Cassie.
Thanks for having me.
Today we're going to be talking about gut health and hormones and everything that is related to the gut microbiome. And the reason why I'm excited about it is because as a nutritionist, the gut microbiome is kind of our happy place. Like when we learned about it in school, we're talking about gut health. And when I think about menopause and perimenopause, I always say there's 2 areas we need to focus on, which is gut health and sleep. And today we're going to do the gut health part of it. So one of the things that fascinates me with your book, Fix Your Gut, Fix Your Hormones, is you talk about how we get to where we're at. So by the time we're in perimenopause and menopause, we have the microbiomes that we have, and there are testing that you can get done, like ViTrac. I talk about that in the book, and you can look at the health of your gut. But what got us here? Like, what are the things that influenced our gut health to create the gut microbiome that we have once we're in perimenopause and menopause?
Yeah. So I think this is such a great thing to talk about, Andrea. So our gut microbiome is, it starts when we're born. And I don't think that a lot of people understand this, but our gut microbiome, when we are born, the way we're born, whether it's C-section, vaginally, has a lot to do with it. What our mom is eating or consuming while they're pregnant with us, and then what we eat as soon as we are born. This all drastically affects our microbiome. And so I think a lot of people kind of get hung up on the fact that, hey, I eat really well, I do what I'm supposed to. Why would my microbiome be out of balance? And so what I try to teach people in the first chapter of my book is, first of all, what is the microbiome? Because it is kind of hard to grasp, right? And we have lots of microbiomes, to be fair. We have them on our skin, we have them in our nose, we have them in our, our GI tract. And so what you and I are talking about are the ones that live in our GI tract and are supposed to be symbiotic, meaning nice to us. They're supposed to help us absorb nutrients and, make hormones and convert hormones. But it is so dependent on so many things. And so again, whether you're born via C-section or vaginally will affect that. Vaginally makes your microbiome better, more robust. It's kind of gross to think about, but when you come out the vaginal canal, you're swallowing a lot of different, secretions from the vagina, which have good bacteria in them. And so that will change what's actually living and growing in your gut. And then as soon as you're born, whether you're fed via your mom's breast milk, which has a lot of colostrum in it and has a lot of the bacteria and secretory IgA and good stuff from her microbiome, versus whether you're being bottle fed, really will affect that good bacteria that lives versus doesn't. And then that first year of life is so important. And really, they've shown the first 2 to 3 years, if we give our kids antibiotics, not only does it kill the bad bacteria, which a lot of kids that get antibiotics are taking them for viruses, so it doesn't help, but the antibiotics kill all that good stuff. So all that good stuff you've gotten from going through the birth canal and your mom's breast milk and what your body's trying to make, we can wipe all of it out with one round of antibiotics. Not to say that sometimes we don't need antibiotics. They can be life-saving, but I feel like we overprescribe antibiotics tremendously in kids. And so these are just a few of the things, right? Up to age 2 to 5. And it's been shown kids that have antibiotics before age 5 are much more likely to develop issues with their skin, gut issues, chronic diseases, and it's because they don't get a good microbiome. And then as we get older, it's medications. And this is what kills me. Medications in this country affect so many people's microbiome and we don't even realize it. Things like metformin, things like statins, PPI medications, anything for heartburn, birth control. These are like some of the top 4, besides antibiotics. Continued antibiotics as an adult affect your microbiome as well. But there are millions and possibly even billions of people who take medications every day that affect their microbiome for the worse. And then we wonder why people keep getting sicker and nobody knows this.
As a doctor, and I'm listening to you're an MD, and hearing you say this is so validating because as an MD, doctors prescribe, right? And by the way, I am very much for allopathic Western conventional medicine. There's a time and a place absolutely for that. And hearing you say that we're overprescribed and how it affects the gut microbiome, I guess many of us don't think of it, right? Like, so let's say you go to your doctor, you have a UTI and you're prescribed antibiotics. Is that one of the areas that you would say is overprescribed?
Yes, because do you really have a UTI? A lot of women with perimenopause and menopause have vaginal pain or vaginal issues, but if you look at their urine, they might have trace leukocytes, but they don't have any signs of infection, and it's more of an estrogen deficiency, or it's an imbalance of the microbiome in their vagina, which can start with the microbiome in your mouth or your gut. And so there's a ton of research showing that there are certain strains of probiotics you can take that will actually help keep the pH of your vagina balanced. Also, when we go into perimenopause and menopause, again, the secretions in our vagina changes because of our estrogen balances, our progesterone, our testosterone, more estrogen and testosterone. But when those secretions change and the pH changes in our vagina, and then we're having sexual intercourse and our partner's secretions mix with ours, it can change the bacteria and the balance in our microbiome to something different that just wasn't there before, because before we had extra lubrication from estrogen. And so then bacteria will stick and it will sometimes feel differently. And so then women freak out and think that they have an infection when really it's an estrogen deficiency or it's a lubrication issue. And so just understanding these things are really important, because if you take an antibiotic for a UTI 3 times a year for 10 years, we're going to be in big trouble by the time we make it to menopause.
So you're talking about the different things that affect the gut microbiome. Can you explain what it means to affect it in a negative way? Like, what does that mean to the woman who's listening?
It's a great question. So what that means is we have good bacteria and we have bad bacteria. The good bacteria are there for a reason. They're there to help us digest our food. We need to get micronutrients out of our food. We eat food in order to give our body nutrients, fats, proteins, carbs. They're all broken down into amino acids and fatty acids and different structures so that our body can take that food and utilize it. Our body is meant to take micronutrients, and some of them are needed for things like methylation. And so basically some of these micronutrients are needed to turn on hormones. So there are certain micronutrients we need to make our thyroid hormone actually be able to be made and then be used. Things like iodine, ferritin, vitamin D, B12. If you don't have these micronutrients, it doesn't matter if your brain gives a signal to your body, hey, let's make thyroid hormone. If we don't have the essential things to actually make thyroid hormone, one of them being iodine, your body can't make it, whether the signal's there or not. And then sometimes our body makes it. So some people make thyroid hormone, then it has to be converted from an inactive form to an active form in our gut. If we don't have the right bacterial balance there, that conversion doesn't happen. And then that conversion, once it happens, has to be taken into a cell in order to be utilized. And if our bacteria are out of balance and that conversion doesn't happen, or let's say the conversion happens, but we have a lot of really bad bacteria release signals to our body called lipopolysaccharides, which are kind of like, oh my gosh, we're being invaded. It's almost like small fires. I tell people, if you have a lot of bad bacteria, it's like your body's releasing all these little small fires everywhere. There's smoke coming out of these bad bacteria. And so your immune system is like, oh my gosh, rushing there to try to put the fire out and figure out what's going on. But that creates a lot of inflammation because our body is just, 70% of our immune system lives in our gut. So if our immune system is constantly going to try to put out all these little fires from our bad bacteria overproducing substances that cause inflammation, then our immune system doesn't get to focus on what it's supposed to. So these are the people that get sick more often. These are also the people that are more likely to develop cancer. Inflammation over time causes cancer long-term because inflammation causes our cells to replicate, fold, and reproduce incorrectly. And the part of our immune system called our macrophages that are supposed to go and be like, hey, you're folding wrong, protein. We need to stop that. Let's engulf and eat you so that we start folding correctly. They can't do that because they're putting out 1,000 little microfires from your bad bacteria. And so all of these things are also affecting whether that thyroid hormone that hopefully got converted in your gut actually gets to go into the cell and work, because cells don't accept hormones into them when everything around it is inflamed and there's a bunch of smoke. It's like the door's shut and the cell's like, I want to take that T3 in, but there's all this smoke and flame and inflammation. So I'm not sure I want to open my door and let the hormone come in. So there's so many different things that have to happen just for one hormone to work, not to mention estrogen is metabolized through your gut. And so a lot of women are not metabolizing their estrogen correctly, which is then causing them to have higher amounts of bad estrogen, which then can lead to cancer. It's not that estrogen causes cancer, it's how it's metabolized. And so this is constantly all happening in your gut. And so you want to make sure that balance of bacteria is correct and you have enough of the bacteria that help you metabolize estrogen and you have enough of the bacteria that help you metabolize your thyroid hormone. And you don't want all this bad bacteria that just causes inflammation. So just making sure that that balance is right so that your bacteria are symbiotic or that they're helping you and not hurting you is kind of the goal.
So you talked about it affecting our hormones because the title of your book, Fix Your Gut, Fix Your Hormones, which by the way just came out in April. So congratulations on writing the book. I know what it's like to write a book. So I am like right there with you that you birthed your book, baby. We're talking about the gut microbiome and hormones. You talk about thyroid. You talk about estrogen. What are other hormones that could impact our gut health, especially around perimenopause and menopause? Because we know now insulin can be higher. We know that our blood sugar can be higher. Cortisol can be higher. There's so many things going on with different hormones, leptin and ghrelin, and I can go on and on. So how are the other hormones in our body affected as well?
It's a great question, Andrea. So basically all of them are affected by your gut, but the big ones in perimenopause, to your point, insulin. So insulin is just this, insulin is like a love-hate relationship. It's a double-edged sword. You have to have insulin to live. It is an imperative hormone. The problem is when you have too much of it or it's being overproduced, it signals to your body the wrong things. So with insulin, when insulin is high, you just have to realize insulin is a one-way street. Insulin tells our body when we eat, hey, we need to store food as fat, pretty much, especially when the levels are really high.
Yeah.
If your insulin's not super high when you eat food, what happens is your body starts to break down the food, the micronutrients, etc. And energy, whether it be in fatty acids, however we're going to utilize that energy, first gets ideally stored in our skeletal muscle, because as we move around and utilize energy, we need to be able to just burn it really quickly. So we put energy into our skeletal muscle because that way our skeletal muscle can just burn the energy. Whatever is left goes to our liver, because our liver can break down through gluconeogenesis energy in about 2 or 3 hours as our skeletal muscle gets rid of all of the energy that's there. And then the final amount after our liver is full is it goes to our fat cells. And it goes in and it's kind of just stuck there. And it almost like our body walls it off and creates it in a way that, like, if we need to break it down and make energy, we can, but it's kind of like put away like our winter coats for a rainy day. When you have too much insulin, the signaling to your body completely changes. And so now what you're consuming, your body's like, oh, let's just store it all in the closet. Let's just put it away in the fat cells instead of utilizing our skeletal muscle stores and our liver stores. And so what that does is it causes a lot of confusion in your body, because when you start to need it, your skeletal muscle doesn't have what it needs. And then it looks at your liver and your liver's like, well, I've got some in here. I guess I can break some down. And so it just causes a lot of chaos. And then a lot of people get hungry. So people will overeat when their insulin's high, but it's a directional just nightmare because your body is not putting your nutrients where it needs to go. And so when that happens, your body gets scared. It's almost like it's in a sympathetic nervous system reaction, because it's like, I need energy. I don't have it. What's going on? Are we starving? So as your insulin goes up, your body will actually lower your estrogen levels. Interestingly enough, insulin and estrogen are on teeter-totters. And we think that's probably, a physiologic response, because if your insulin's really high and you're sick, you obviously don't want to reproduce. But your insulin has been shown to directly affect your estrogen. So when your insulin's high, your estrogen's going to come down. Now that's a problem for us, especially in perimenopause, because we need estrogen. When we don't have it, we get all the symptoms that you talk about in your book, right? Where we have brain fog and we're tired and our skin's dry and now we're having vaginal issues. And so this is a part of why it's so important to keep your blood sugar balanced always, but definitely in perimenopause, because we want to do everything we can to keep our insulin down so that we're making the estrogen that we can. And then when our insulin goes up and it's high because of issues with our gut, that causes our cortisol to go up, because our cortisol is our stress response. And our body's like, oh my gosh, we're stressed. What's going on? And so our cortisol goes up. And when our cortisol goes up by way of our gut, because our bad bacteria are high and it's producing LPS, and now we're making too much insulin, and now our food's getting shunted to the wrong places, and we release something called cytokines from our fat cells. So when our fat cells are taking food in more than they normally would, they release something called cytokines, which are more markers or more signals from our body that, like, hey, something is not right here. So then that drives our cortisol up because our body's getting stressed. Like, why are we getting more smoke signals now from the fat? We're getting it from the gut and the fat. Are we on fire? Are we dying? And when our cortisol goes up, it tanks our progesterone. And our progesterone is our other resilient hormone as a woman when we're going through perimenopause that helps our mood and our sleep. And so there's just this, I like to nicely call it metabolic dumpster fire that starts to accumulate as your gut goes bad, because your gut goes bad. And then not only that, but you'll get energy issues and fatigue just from your gut not being balanced, right? Because when your bad bacteria are out of balance, they're going to eat all your food. Your good bacteria are going to starve. Your good bacteria are the ones that are getting the good micronutrients so that your brain has energy and your body has energy. And so you're going to be tired to begin with. Now our insulin's going up. Now we're hungry more. Then we eat more. More of our food's being stored as fat. Now we're gaining weight. That's not helping our the way we feel about ourselves. We're more stressed. And so our cortisol's going up, our insulin's going up, our estrogen's going down, our progesterone's going down. All of that also affects your testosterone. So your testosterone will go down. We're not converting our thyroid hormone as well in our gut now. Then there's something called growth hormone that we make at night when we sleep. Ideally between 1 and 2 a.m., we have a pulsatile release of growth hormone. It's supposed to go in and repair our body, repair our muscles, repair anything that needs to be repaired, form memories, and then help our body make our hormones for the next day. Well, guess what? We don't make growth hormone when our gut's a wreck and it's inflamed and we don't have estrogen and we don't have progesterone and we don't have testosterone because we're not sleeping well. And so then we're not making growth hormone. So just every way your body can get it and be attacked, it just starts to kind of fall apart when our gut doesn't work well.
So, what can you do to help women, especially with their insulin? And the reason why I ask is if women are PCOS or PMOS now, PMOS is a metabolic issue. And even if women are doing what they can with food and supplements and exercise and managing their stress and getting their sleep, sometimes they still can't get the insulin down. So, what do you recommend? Obviously, start with the lifestyle and diet portion, but then also, what if they need that extra help? What do you, as a doctor, recommend that these women do to help bring down the insulin?
Yeah, there's lots of things. So lifestyle is so broad. And I think sometimes really working with somebody, from a nutritional background perspective or just a coach or a physician who understands this, like a lot of people think, hey, I'm actually eating really well. When in reality, it's like everyone needs different things. And when you're in your luteal phase versus your follicular phase, you're going to need different nutrition. So I think, first of all, it's really looking at, are you really giving your body what it needs? A lot of women undereat. They don't get enough protein.
Oh, yeah.
And so we really need to focus on that. Like, are you really getting the nutrition that you need to? And then is it from good whole foods? So I tell people, I try to think about what would my grandparents eat? Because I remember going to my grandparents' house when I was a kid, and it was all just whole foods, right? You knew what it was. You opened the fridge and it was like single ingredient whole foods that grandma maybe mixed together and made food. It was none of this packaged, processed, hyper palatable garbage that we eat. So I tell people from a nutrition standpoint, we talk about it in chapter 2 of my book, like we've got to take the sugar, sweetened beverages, food out of our diet. We've got to eat fiber. I know you're big on fiber because fiber is what feeds our good bacteria, and our good bacteria are what we need to be on our side. So just looking at some simple things like get rid of the sugar, processed foods, eat fiber, eat whole foods. But then if they're like, yes, I'm doing all that, a lot of it goes back to stress too. Like, what are we thinking? Because what we think, our gut feels and senses, and it will change our microbiome. Are we moving our body? Are we seeing the sun? Do we feel like we're in, safe environment? So many people, and it may be some people listening to this, actually don't even feel safe at home. It's pretty interesting. Like whether it's they're in a verbally abusive relationship or, whatever, but like you have to feel safe. You have to, feel like everything is okay, or your body's going to be traumatized. It's going to bring your cortisol up. And so if you've done all of that and you're working on sleep and, you've done all of that and your insulin is still high and it is truly like we've got a metabolic issue, sometimes I tell people, we may have to use a little bit of pharmaceutical agents to kind of help bring this down while you continue your lifestyle modifications, because lifestyle is so important, because ideally we take you off of these pharmaceutical things at some point. But if you don't change your lifestyle and you come off of them, then everything goes right back to where it was. And so in our clinic, we focus on lifestyle, but we've had a ton of success with PMOS, with very, very, very tiny doses of GLP-1s, like microdoses. Some people choose to do a little bit of metformin, again, very low doses, but I don't love it because sometimes it can do different things to your microbiome.
Right.
GLP-1 is a hormone that your body naturally makes. And so just trying to give a little bit of that back. But I find a lot of times in women, they may have things that they don't even realize are contributing to their insulin, whether it be stress, whether it be lack of sleep, whether it be unresolved trauma. So just teaching people that this is all a part of the healing process.
To your point, sometimes we do need the intervention of medications, especially if it's a metabolic issue and you've done everything and you've tried everything, but nothing is working, because we do want to get that under control. Yes. And I'm guessing too, that it also is affecting your thyroid, right?
Your thyroid, your estrogen, your progesterone. I find in women with PMOS, if you can get their insulin to come down by half, ideally we want it less than 5 fasting, which is a big ask, because
That's a huge ask for PMOS.
93% of the adult population is over 5, just all comers. Yeah. But if we can get it to come down by half, people, their insulin, if you cut it in half, they do astronomically better. They feel better. If you can get them to lose 5 to 10% of their body weight, usually cycles return. They get pregnant if they've been trying. It will change their life. And so we just really focus on that. How can we get your insulin to come down by half? But I mean, I personally have PCOS. I took microdose GLP-1s 4 years ago, changed my life. I still take them and I can keep my insulin pretty well controlled. Sometimes it is a really big metabolic issue, but I've also changed my gut. I've changed, a lot of other things. And so it helps. And so all of it kind of compounds. But to your point, I really think that insulin is where we've got to start. Like if you don't get somebody's insulin to come down, their estrogen's never going to get better. Their progesterone won't get better. Their thyroid won't get better. And when you have all these little cuts, it's like death by 1,000 cuts, right? And that's where we develop these, what I like to nicely call metabolic dumpster fires, because nothing's working. And so it's really hard for your body to work when none of its signaling hormones are working.
Is there a particular GLP-1 that you're more in favor of or customizable to the person and their situation? I'm talking about PMOS in particular.
Yeah, I think that it is. I feel like tirzepatide, which is also known as Mounjaro, does better generally in PMOS. And I think it's because of it's got a GLP plus a GIP. The GIP component of it is supposed to help with peripheral fat metabolism better. And so a lot of women with PCOS, we have more stores of adipose tissue because our insulin's been dysregulated for longer. Some people, though, just don't tolerate that as well as semaglutide or, Ozempic, because there's only one component to that medication because of the nausea aspect. But if you use small enough doses, typically people do fine. So I would say that most people have more success with tirzepatide, keeping in mind that health is not owned, it's rented, and the rent's due every day. So we can't just take a medicine and check out.
Oh, 100%. I actually did a whole episode recently, and I'll link to that below, with a nutritionist who is certified in GLP-1s and helping women with their nutrition. So yes, very good point, and absolutely something that we've covered here. I hear a lot about microdosing GLP-1s on social media, but I'm not in the peptide space, so I don't really pay that much attention to it, but you're bringing it up here. What does it mean to microdose? Obviously doing very small amounts, but like if you can give actual numbers, because I'm sure a lot of my listeners are interested or maybe are on a GLP-1. So what does that mean as far as the dosage goes to microdose?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. So typical starting doses of semaglutide or Ozempic start at 0.25 milligrams. And in the studies, because I actually helped do them in fellowship, you started on a 0.25 milligram dose. It was a starting dose. And after 4 weeks, you immediately went to 0.5. Those are decent sized doses. So we start people on 0.05, maybe 0.1. So not even half of a starter dose. And we like people to try to stay there because it's just a tiny amount that's going to help recircuit and rewire what's going on with your insulin. Now, sometimes when people have been very metabolically unhealthy, like I saw a girl recently, her insulin was in the 80s and she had PCOS or PMOS for a really long time and didn't know. In that girl, I was like, here's the deal. We're going to start you very low. We're going to maybe titrate you every 4 to 6 weeks. We're probably going to have to get you on a little bit of a higher dose, but very quickly we're going to come right back down because I've got to get your insulin to come down. And, that would be like kind of putting a rowboat in the ocean in Maine and being like, get to, Europe. But most people, you can put them on very low doses like that and just maintain them there, change their lifestyle, and things change drastically. So for semaglutide, 0.05, 0.1. For tirzepatide, 0.5. Typically, tirzepatide starts at 2.5 to 5 milligrams. This is like a standard dose. So you're talking like a 20th of like 20% of the dose. So pretty low doses. And I think a lot of people think like, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there who, you can get these on a telehealth platform and not ever see a provider. Nobody's monitoring you. Nobody's talking to you about protein. We do in-body scans on our patients, follow muscle mass, make them see nutritionists, etc. What you don't want to do is start one of these and just titrate up every 4 weeks and just up, because yes, you may lose weight faster, but it's going to be bad weight. It's going to be muscle weight. And so what I try to tell people too is like, this is not a quick fix. You should not lose more than a half a pound, maybe 1 pound a week. If you're losing more than that, then it's too much. And so I think people have to remember that too. This isn't like just a switch we're going to flip on. We're kind of retraining your body and your hormones and your body signals what to do correctly.
It's interesting to me because if you're microdosing, then it may not necessarily be to lose weight or kind of have that effect that you would do when you're doing a higher dose, right?
Correct. It's just like, hey, here's some GLP, so that when we do eat our food, it's going to slow down our digestion because our body, when we have high insulin levels, it's kind of like we've worn out our GLP-1. Like we're all born with GLP. And this is a very interesting concept. I tell people this all the time. You know how kids, like when they're 3, 4, 5, you set them down to eat. They might eat 2 or 3 bites and then they get up and play and you're annoyed as their parent because you're like, I just made all this food and you need to eat your vegetables and they're over it.
Yeah.
Because they have GLP and they are very sensitive to it because we haven't destroyed it. And actually the worst thing you can do as a parent is force your kids to eat when they're not hungry because that's what kills our GLP. And a lot of Americans and just people in general, we don't have food scarcity. And so we eat when we're not hungry or when we're already full. And over time, that feedback to our brain is like, well, okay, even though you're making GLP, I don't need it because I keep eating even though I'm not hungry. And so then our body's like, fine, I'm not going to make that hormone, right? I'm going to spend my energy on something else. And so a lot of people have literally lost GLP's function or ability in their body. And so just giving some of that back, it's like, oh, wait, my stomach's actually full. So I actually don't need to make more insulin because I'm not going to eat any more food. And so then now that the insulin levels are starting to come down, when we do have insulin, it's like our body will utilize that insulin correctly and it actually works. So then all the signaling starts happening like it's supposed to again. So it's just like we're trying to re-signal where our food's supposed to go. And now that our insulin isn't so high, our cortisol doesn't have to shoot up every time we eat. And now that our cortisol and insulin aren't so high, we can utilize some of that energy to make estrogen and progesterone. And now that we're making estrogen and progesterone, our mood is better and our sleep is better. And now since our cortisol isn't high, we're not, getting all that water retention and storing fat in places that we shouldn't. And now that we feel better and our hormones are higher, we're sleeping better. So now we're making more growth hormones. So it's kind of like a domino effect. And it's not that you're really taking it for the weight loss. It's just you're taking it so that we can get everything that's supposed to be working right back in the right direction. And then you have to do the work. You get to make the choice. You get to make the choice of eating your fiber or not, of going for a walk or not, of thinking positive things or not. But it is helpful because sometimes you just get in that rat race hamster wheel of everything's going the wrong way. And it's really hard to make that stop. And what I hate more than anything in the world is when women come to me and they're like, well, providers have told me to eat less and exercise more. And I just, I need to do better, Yeah. And it's like, no, that's not it.
No, exactly. It does not work for us now that we're in perimenopause and menopause. This is so interesting to me because you're saying that we lose our GLP-1 ability, but also it affects leptin and ghrelin because we know that in perimenopause, our ghrelin, which is our hunger hormone, is higher. We know the research shows us that. So it's kind of like this whole waterfall of all these things are coming at us. And especially we know that because we're hungrier in perimenopause, if you're having issues bringing your insulin down, that could be a great time to try it as well, and in menopause too. But if you're feeling you're never satiated, you're hungry all the time, that you eat a lot and you're still hungry afterwards, or you ate and then maybe a half an hour later you're hungry again, like maybe that's something to consider. And it's especially asking your doctor to get your fasting insulin tested because it's not standard on blood tests. You have to ask for the test. Hopefully your doctor will give you that test, but definitely asking for your A1C, asking for your fasting glucose and your fasting insulin, all of that can play a big role. And ALT and AST, your liver enzymes as well, Dr. Cassie. I feel like that is a solution. Obviously looking at nutrition and lifestyle and supplements and all of that first, but if that isn't working for you anymore and you need something more, I think that's a really good recommendation.
And I also think, I tell women who come to me and they feel really bad because they've been told eat more or eat less, exercise more. I say that would be the same thing as you going to your doctor and your blood pressure is high and they tell you to eat less and exercise more. Like we don't do that in this country. If you go somewhere and your blood pressure is high, what we should be talking to you about is sugar intake, salt intake, exercise, etc. Usually doctors are very happy to just write you a prescription for your blood pressure or your cholesterol. And it's like, this is the same thing whenever you're hungry because you're going through menopause and you're gaining weight. I mean, it is literally the same thing. It is a hormone imbalance. that is not your fault. And so it just needs to be taken seriously from a provider's perspective. And that's part of why I wrote the book, because not only was I a patient that was like gaslit forever and just mad, and like if I would have had this book 12 years ago, it would have changed my life and what I did in my 20s and, you know, with all the disease processes I had. But also as a provider, I didn't know better after an endocrinology fellowship. For years, I was like, man, I'm doing everything I learned in my fellowship and my patients are getting worse. Why? And it wasn't until I went outside of traditional medicine, and like you, I believe in Eastern and Western medicine together, and I really started looking at the gut, that, oh my gosh, everyone got better. And so it's like, there's just so many, you know, there's education missing, and then there's gaslighting. And then, so I wrote the book for providers too, like read this from a physiologic standpoint. I promise you it will make sense because I understand hormone physiology very well. And it just all, I mean, it makes sense. It's like we're a forest, not a tree. You can't look at just one thing. Everything, you know, directs our body. Hormones are signaling molecules, but they all work together. They all have negative and positive feedback loops. And once you realize that, then it makes a lot of sense. But I hate that, you know, women experience this from providers, because if you go to your provider with any other symptom, they're very happy to write you a prescription for an SSRI if you're depressed, for a PPI if you have heartburn, for blood pressure medicine, for cholesterol medicine, for thyroid medicine. But for some reason, it's like a stigma if your insulin's high.
And hopefully that's going to change. It's such a good thing that PCOS was renamed to PMOS, because now it validates us as to what we're experiencing, and hopefully that will change the treatment options that doctors are recommending as well, because it's a massive epidemic, especially for us. We already are more prone to insulin resistance as we go into perimenopause and menopause. And if you come into it with PCOS or PMOS, then you already have some degree of insulin resistance. So it's just compounded on top of each other, which makes it even harder for us. So I feel like hopefully now, fingers crossed, that it's going to change. I'm curious, how much training did you get around perimenopause and menopause in med school?
Probably a couple hours, just like nutrition, actually, like very little about nutrition, very little about, you know, we get training around hormone physiology, but nothing about like, these are the symptoms, which you even enlightened me about all the symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. Nothing about that, right? And traditional medicine is very much like a if then this. And it's all very prescription based, which is what I hate. And like, I would love nothing more than to revamp the education system in medicine, because it's like, here's the disease. Here is how you diagnose the disease. Here are the symptoms of the disease. Here's how you treat it. And it's never like any sort of thought process. It's just like, if this, then this. And that's never the case in the real world. I've helped tens of thousands of women, and never is there like two that have the exact same process through menopause and perimenopause. You know, I told you I was talking to a lady yesterday for 62 minutes who was so flustered and like crying and upset. And I was like, girl, because she said, my mom didn't experience this, and I have 3 best friends and none of them are experiencing this, and I can't find anyone that's, and I'm like, I get it, because everyone has a different journey. You know, she was even talking to AI, and she's like, I can't find this in AI, but I'm telling you I'm not crazy. I'm like, you're not crazy. It's just everyone experiences different things. They do. And so that's what I hate about traditional medicine, is it's like, well, if you don't fit in this box, I don't know, and you know, you fit in this box and you get this prescription, and that's just not how it works. Like, I don't care what you say, it's not, I promise. Taking care of a lot of people.
Yeah, it's definitely not how it works. And hearing you say that you got a couple of hours of training around menopause and perimenopause as an endocrinologist, you are a hormone doctor. At this point, I'm not surprised. Like I've spoken to so many doctors and from different areas of medicine, and all of them say they just learned nothing about perimenopause and menopause. And hopefully that's going to change too. Like, again, so many good things are coming now, but we still have a lot of work, because there's still a lot of doctors out there who are treating women who don't have the education and the know-how now. So that's why your book, my book, is so important to get into medical doctors' hands and healthcare providers' hands, because it really educates them about what women are experiencing and feeling. So it's, yeah, I really
and patients too, though. Like you know, like you were telling me, about 40% of patients, you were saying, are gaslit in perimenopause and menopause by their providers. And I like to, I really don't think it's that doctors are mean and they are trying to hurt people. It's just they don't know. Like
I
they're
don't know. Yeah.
uneducated. They have no idea. And so also patients being able to say, hey, no, here's a book, or here's where I got this information. Actually, all 5 of these things are very common perimenopausal symptoms. Would you be interested in checking this for me? And if you're a provider and you're listening to this and a patient ever says this to you, you should never be defensive about that, right? Like I tell people all the time, like I have zero ego. Bring me whatever you want, I'll look at it. I have patients who bring me stuff all the time and they're like, hey, have you heard of this? And if I haven't, I'm like, no, let me look at it, because I'm sure people in this world know more than I do about something. So I don't think that you should take it offensively. I think you should just think, okay, well, this person probably knows their body better than I do. Let me look and see if this is something I can learn where I can help them and other people, and if it doesn't hurt them, then entertain it, right? Like there should be no ego about it. It should just be like, how do we make people better? And everything's always changing. So I think it's important to empower patients with the knowledge so that then they can help educate providers as well.
I love that. It's like my dream, my wish to get the list of 103 plus symptoms into every doctor's office in North America and the world, really. And then imagine that their patient sitting across from them, and it's like, oh, let me check. Is that on the list? Oh, okay. Well, let's rule everything out. But if we find everything is fine, oh, maybe it's a perimenopause or menopause symptom. And that's where I hope it goes.
You need to get an artist to like make this for you somehow into like a picture or like a painting,
Yeah.
Like,
Okay,
like
exactly.
I'm serious. Like I would buy that piece of artwork that people could put in their lobby, because it would be like a good conversation starter.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Doctor, yeah. I mean, some sort of, get an art, or like some sort of fun artist, like commission them to like make this and then make prints of it, because I think that would be great. There's so many different ways you could do it, but like, something about like, are you experiencing these symptoms, or it could be menopause, and just have 103 different things listed, and you could make it look cool. And I think that would be awesome. I would buy one.
I love that idea. Thank you. You know what? I think I might just have to do that. I mean, whatever it's going to take to get doctors and healthcare providers to help educate themselves and their patients, like, to me, that's amazing. You're talking about helping patients. Can you explain how you work? Because you actually see patients. Can you talk about how you work with women? So if anyone who's listening is like, oh my gosh, I love Dr. Cassie, I want to work with her, explain how you work and how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah. And I do still see patients, and I also have really great providers too. So I see patients 3 days a week. I do some bigger scale stuff too. I do a lot of teaching for providers now, but my providers, they go through with me I have a course that I've kind of created that they have to go through. But when we see patients, what we're doing is we're looking at the forest and not the tree. So when you come in, you do a 30-minute intake, and it is just like lifestyle questions. What do you eat? How often do you eat? How much water do you drink? What are your thoughts during the day, positive or negative? How many hours do you sleep? What do your relationships look like? Have you been through trauma? Like, it's just a huge intake of your history. What have you been diagnosed with, etc. And then anything you're putting in your body, any input. We want to know about supplements. We want to, so we just kind of get all that information. We make sure there's nothing weird out of the box, that we would want to order additional testing for. And then we order a very comprehensive blood test panel on all of our patients. There's at least 35 markers we get, sometimes more depending on what you say. And then you come back 2 to 3 weeks later with the blood test. And then we sat down and we literally go over all of them. And we have a system where it's like, okay, here's your metabolic health. Here's everything we see about your metabolic health, from your fasting insulin to your liver enzymes to your triglycerides. Like, this is what's going on. We look at your cholesterol. We look at your ApoA and your ApoB. Like, do you have high cholesterol? Do you have high cholesterol that's concerning versus not? Because a lot of people have high cholesterol, and I say that with quotations because there are set guidelines for what high is. But when you compare their high or when you compare their LDL to their HDL, and you look at their ApoA and their ApoB and their lipoA, it's like, well, they really don't have high cholesterol. And so we really break it down for you metabolically from a cholesterol perspective, a full thyroid panel. We look at, cortisol and inflammatory markers and all your sex hormones, and we make a picture for you. Like, hey, these are the things. Oh, and micronutrients too. We're big on micronutrients. So these are all the things that we see that even though the lab says it's normal, we don't think, like, we look at optimal. So this is optimal, ideally. And we put together for you, okay, here are all the things that we see, and this is probably why it's happening. We try to help you figure out, kind of make like a timeline, like what caused this? Like if your insulin's high, is that what's causing your T3 to be low? And if your insulin's high, that's probably causing your estrogen to be low. And maybe, you know, that's what caused your progesterone. So we just try to lay it all out. And a lot of people after their first visit are like, wow, I thought I was in pretty good shape, but I actually have some concerning signs, right? And it's like, well, that's not your fault. It's just, this is what your body's showing. And then a lot of times what we do too is people do what's called a GI map. I know there's lots of different gut tests you can do. We have found that GI map is just one of the less overwhelming ones, but still gives you a lot of really good information. And so anytime we're concerned about gut health symptoms, we do a GI map, and then we can use your GI map, your good bacteria, your bad bacteria, your yeast, your how you're digesting your food, what the immune system of your gut looks like. Are you making beta glucuronidase and metabolizing your estrogen correctly? Do you have leaky gut? We take all that, we put it together with your labs, and we're like, okay, here is what we see. This is the best way to fix this. And we also take into account your symptoms. So every time you come, it's like, what are the top 3 things that are bothering you? And then how can we relate these symptoms to what we see on your labs and your gut? And so we just try to help people understand how it's all, you know, affected and connected. Amazing. Because I think it's really frustrating for people to go to 7 different doctors, and each of those 7 doctors treat one thing. And at the end of it, you're like, well, am I just a hot mess falling apart? Like it's all my fault? When you sit down and show people, hey, this caused this, and then this is also affecting this. And then actually, if we fix your gut, it's just going to fix all of this. I just find that people do better. And so that's how we start off. And then after your initial lab review and you have your plan, typically what happens is you see your provider every month. So we're working on things. And in between seeing your provider, you see a health coach, and our health coaches work on nutrition, chewing your food, how to digest your food properly, your mental mindset, your movement, your sleep. And so they're helping you with all the lifestyle stuff, and they're keeping you accountable while the provider is helping you monitor any sort of medication changes or, you know, just kind of navigating your lab process. So 6 months down the road, if you do this, a lot of times we see people making such big bounds. It would have taken 2 or 3 years in the general healthcare system at least, because we just do a very tailored approach. And so that's how we look at it. And people typically do pretty well.
That's amazing. And how can people find you on social media?
So yeah, thanks for asking. I'm at modern endocrine _. So it's all together, MODERN ENDOCRINE _. If you type in my name, Dr. Cassie Smith, it usually comes up too. But I'm on Instagram and TikTok, and I think I have a YouTube and Facebook, all the things. I have a podcast as well, which you were on, Hormones, Metabolism, and You. We have a website that's wonderful. We have a ton of stuff on our website like just videos about like if you're experiencing this may be what's off. And it's just www.modern-endocrine.com. And our book's website is guthormonefix.com. guthormonefix.com, where you can purchase the book. You can also get a lot of freebies that we, just different things that we gave you for the book, but it's also on Amazon. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you for doing this today. It was such a pleasure meeting you. We're so simpatico. I love it. And I love how you, like me, feel there's a need for both modern, conventional Western medicine and natural health and integrative health. So I love how you bridge the two. So thank you for what you do.
Thank you for having me. No, I completely agree. Like, we've got to do better. We have to do better. And that's why, I have a license in 46 states. So we do telehealth. We have a clinic in Oklahoma City, but we do telehealth, and it was more out of patient need. I just felt bad. People were like, and that's why, like you, I just want to help educate people, because we're all in this together and it's a rough ride.
It is. And thank you for what you do.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
I hope you enjoyed my interview with Dr. Cassie as much as I did. If you did, please share it, because the more you share shows you care. And please take a moment to rate and review our podcast, Menopause Reimagined, as that will help it get out to more women who are looking for help in perimenopause and menopause. And also, please take a moment to rate and review my book, Nourishing Menopause: Powerful Nutrition and Lifestyle Strategies to Feel Your Best, if you have read it. And if you haven't, be sure to pick up a copy at www.nourishingmenopausebook.com. You can find it anywhere that you shop for books in Canada, in bookstores, independent bookstores, as well as online on Amazon. And if you're in the US, you could find it on Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble, as well as other book sites. So we link to them in our nourishingmenopausebook.com website. And if you're looking for high quality third-party tested supplements, please check out our website at www.wearemorphous.com, as we have incredible high quality supplements that both Randy and I take on a daily basis. Thank you for spending the last little bit with me. I know there's a lot you could be doing, but instead you chose to spend your time with me, and for that I'm grateful. I'll see you at the next interview. Yeah.